hope after all your lunch and stuff you haven't all fallen asleep yet. I'll try and keep you awake a little bit longer. As the introduction was, my name is Brian Odian. I'm the VikingCloud Compliance and Risk Services Director for APAC. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I've been doing this for 38 years. So I'm getting a bit long in the tooth on this front in IT and cybersecurity. But that's enough about me. Let's just dive straight into the presentation. You know, our body's first line of defence is our outer barrier. It's our skin, our mucous membranes. Basically, they all act to face constant threats that exist in the world around us. You could think of us as being a living, breathing, walking, talking attack surface. That's basically what we are. Now, thankfully, we have an immune system. And the immune system is a smart, coordinated network that can deal with any threats that attack our outer defences. When our body's attack surface is breached, our immune system kicks in, and it's layered, it's strategic, and it's precise. It can recognise millions of different pathogens that attack us from the outside world, and it can adapt to them. The real power comes from how well it communicates. It basically can communicate to keep everything in sync and moving ahead. When the immune system is in trouble, it adapts fast. It sends out signals, coordinates where the attack is happening, and sends some support to those areas within your body. Understanding how our body defends itself can help us with other attack surfaces, like in cybersecurity. Just as our body continually adapts to new threats, we have to adapt to continually emerging new threats and dangers to our attack surface. And we have to, because as Gartner said, attack surfaces are expanding outside of a set of controllable assets. In other words, outside of things we can directly control ourselves. A good example is large language models, or LLMs. They bring some great benefits, but they also open up new avenues for attacks on our cybersecurity attack surfaces. You know, the World Economic Forum Global Cybersecurity Outlook report for 2025 said that 66% of organisations expect AI to have the biggest impact on their cybersecurity in the year ahead. Now, here's the crazy thing. Only 37% of those organisations said they had processes in place to check the security of their AI tools and the tools they were using. And yet 66% of them believe it's going to be a problem. You know, the emergence of LLM highlights the benefits of recognising risk now, not only for the things that we can directly control, but also the things that are outside of our realm of direct control. For example, we can protect our bodies by wearing masks, washing our hands, living a healthy lifestyle, but we can't directly control how diseases are spread. For example, Legionnaire's disease. Now, that's not typically passed from person to person. Legionnaire's disease actually comes via bacteria-contaminated droplets that spread from systems like air conditioning. Now, I bet you didn't think when you were coming in here today that you might be at a risk. It's a low risk, don't get me wrong. But that's something outside of our direct control. We don't control the air conditioning system. Now, think of that in the same terms of LLM, for example. What are some things that we can directly control, and then what are things that are outside of our direct control? We can put strong access control and authentication methods in place. We can monitor and log things carefully. We can filter prompts and inputs and strengthen our API security. And we can train our employees with some focused awareness training about what to look out for. But even with all of that, there is just so much outside of our control. We can't control the underlying model's infrastructure. That's managed by third parties. We also can't directly manage how our data is controlled by those third parties. And we have no way to patch or fix the vulnerabilities within the LLMs themselves in the first place. So the question is, could LLMs create a crack in our attack surface defences? You know, not long ago, Google published a blog on their AI systems like Gemini. They learned that, they basically warned that data from external sources can create new security risks, especially when untrusted inputs can execute instructions on AI systems. Attackers hide malicious commands in data that AI may indeed find its way to and read and then execute those malicious pieces of information. Now, that kind of attack is known as an indirect prompt injection. Let's take a look at a real-world example. Attackers hid malicious code in an email like our mock email up here on the screen, right at the end of the email. Now, they used some simple CSS and HTML tricks to hide the commands. Tiny text, white font, invisible to the human eye. Now, because there's no links or attachments on those in that email, it's just going to go past your standard security filters right to the user's inbox. Now, when the user uses Gemini AI to summarise that email, Gemini is going to see that hidden text at the end of the email, and it's going to execute those commands as instructed. And I can tell you right now, on screen, those codes already exist in that mock email. Let me enlarge it for you and show it to you. Gemini followed those hidden commands and created a fake security alert telling them that their Gmail password had been compromised. And it was being very helpful. The cyber criminals even provided a phone number for you to call and get some support. Now, because people inherently trust Gemini and its outputs, it was quite easy to mistake that for a real warning and to act on it accordingly. It's a simple attack, yet very effective. So much so that Google wrote a blog talking about a multi-layered defense strategy that they have for indirect prompt injection attacks. And that's just one of many attacks. There are many AI-related risks that now expand our cyber attack surface. But it's no longer about the things that we can just directly control, and that's just one example. For another example, let's look at geopolitics. You know, over 60 countries went to the polls last year. That's over half the world's population. Now, according to the World Economic Forum report, 60% of respondents reported that their cyber strategies were influenced by geopolitical tensions. 17% of those companies halted entirely operations in certain regions and countries, and 16% of them changed vendors as a result. And all of that before the trade war that we see happening before our very eyes right now. You know, one side they emphasise that state-sponsored attacks are increasingly targeting not just governments, but are also aiming to disrupt economies, undermine critical infrastructure, and he went on to say, and create chaos within global systems. What the report made clear is there is no standard playbook for geopolitical risk. But how bad is it really? You know, Mike Burgess is the Director General for the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, or ASIO. Now, in an annual threat assessment speech, he said more Australians are being targeted for espionage than at any other time in history. And he went on to say, from my point of view, it feels like hand-to-hand combat. That's the way he described it, hand-to-hand combat. Now, he mentioned that things like water, transport, energy were all currently being attacked for a future attack, not for the here and now. They just wanted access here and now so that in the future they could sabotage systems. He went on to say, ASIO is busier than ever before, busier than any other time in our history, busier than the Cold War, busier than 9/11. That's what he went on to say. But Australia is not alone. You know, when I was putting together this presentation, Singapore was actually currently under attack by a group called UNC 3886. Now, who are they? Well, they're a state-sponsored cyber espionage group focused on targeting government, defences, infrastructure, essential services and so forth. Singapore's Minister for National Security saw them as a serious threat to the country and national security. He said that they were aiming at vital infrastructure, things that were designed to keep essential services up and running. And these nation-state-sponsored attackers are willing to play the long game. And here's the thing. The global tension that exists today is now spilling over into other areas, including things like cyber insurance. Cyber insurance has taken hit after hit in the recent years. Not only are the prices going up, but also the exclusions that they implement into policies are increasing at an alarming rate. And geopolitical tension doesn't help, because what happens is you now have a lot of state-sponsored attacks. And those attacks don't often just involve the countries that are involved in the conflict, they involve the countries and companies outside of the conflict and not directly involved. So what one large insurer did was they decided they would change the war exclusion clause to exclude state-sponsored attacks. But as Josephine Wolfe, who's an expert in this area on cyber insurance, said in Security Week, who gets to make a decision on what's a state-sponsored attack? Is it a couple of people sitting inside a building, in a government building, that's doing this without the government's knowledge, and that's a state-sponsored attack? Or could it be that there's an organisation that the government knows about, sitting outside of them, in their country, that's doing something that they really like against another country or company, and so they don't go after them, they just leave them alone and tacitly approve them? Is that a state-sponsored attack? And as a result, then you're not covered by cyber insurance. Either way, it's clear that geopolitics is having a major impact and a major role on our attack surfaces today, adding new risks to our surfaces at every level. Another area is quantum computing, and you've heard a little bit about that earlier on this morning as well. How far ahead have you thought about the impact of quantum? Well, again, according to the World Economic Forum report, only about 40% of you have actually thought about it so far. But here's the thing, even before quantum computers exist at scale, they're already having an impact on your attack surfaces and the way we do things. They're changing the game right now. For example, there's a new tactic called harvest now, decrypt later. So they're quite happy to steal your encrypted data today and store it and wait for quantum computers to become powerful enough so that they can then decrypt it. It's a preemptive espionage move, really waiting for that vulnerability to become a reality. And it really isn't that far away. So how confident do you feel about all that encrypted data that you're storing right now? You know, we've all heard statements like that on the screen before. Microsoft, universities, NIST, they all say the same thing. Quantum computers will one day break public key cryptography. Wired.com said, whoever wins the race for quantum computing won't just have the next great world-saving engine. They'll also have the greatest code-breaking engine in history. And that's really what it comes down to. Any wonder why the quantum computing development has become an arms race in the world? Countries are spending billions of dollars to be the first ones to get it, because whoever gets it first wins. You know, even NATO has a quantum strategy because they're applying it to their defence to the point where they believe they'll be able to detect submarines. What's the point of a submarine if you can detect it and know exactly where it is at all times? They just become death tubes. So in reality, quantum computing is going to have a huge impact. They offer incredible benefits. Of that, there is no doubt, but they also bring some serious risks. Wired.com put it this way, the quantum apocalypse is coming, be very afraid. And it doesn't stop there. We're also dealing with other things that are hitting our attack surfaces, changing human behaviours, cloud risk, BYOD policies, supply chain vulnerabilities and so forth. All these things make our attack surfaces much better and move some critical systems outside of our direct control. So the question is, how do we respond effectively? You know, again, understanding how our bodies operate offers some critical insights to cybersecurity. Our immune system isn't controlled by one organ, it's a distributed system. We have lymph nodes, we have bone marrow, we have the spleen, our tonsils and even our appendix are all involved in our immune system. So don't ask me why we keep ripping out our tonsils and appendix. It's all part of it. But the body distributes those systems. Our immune system communicates through chemical signals and moves quickly through the bloodstream to where they're needed. And even reflexes like coughing and sneezing expel harmful microbes from within our body. If they bypass the initial defences, those microbes, then there's a bunch of other defences along the way, and protective barriers that they have to get through. The complexity and adaptability of our immune system just can't be covered in a short presentation here today. But the immune system strategy, detection, rapid response, and layered defences can certainly be applied to cybersecurity. Let's start with detection. Our cells use special receptors to react to harmful pathogens. In cybersecurity, tools like SIEM, augmented with AI, can do the same thing. Now, why is augmenting SIEM with AI so important? Because it can detect things that normal rule-based systems would actually go past. So what are some of the qualities or systems of AI can we use with the likes of SIEM to help detect the things that we need to find straight up? We have behavioural analysis, so that's learning normal patterns of user system behaviour and flagging any unusual activities or potential threats. We then have predictive detection, so identifying threats proactively by learning from historical data and predicting future incidents. Anomaly detection, so highlighting any unusual data flows or access patterns or deviation from normal baseline behaviours. Automated threat hunting, so automatically scanning large data sets for indicators of any compromise or any new and unusual attack techniques. Reduction of false positives, so you're reducing the noise and focusing analysts' attention on high confidence risks that may exist in your incidents that's learned from. And finally, incident response and automation. So you're basically automating incident response and containing that threat based on the seriousness of it, the likelihood, the impact and so forth, real data that can help make those decisions. So you've detected the threat, now what? Again, our bodies are great, fast responders to incidents, even to brand new threats. Once a danger is detected, it acts immediately. Now, applying that to cybersecurity, when was the last time you tested your incident response plan against something entirely new and unknown to your team? How did they react to it when you did that? How long did it take them to respond? You see, you don't want to give them something they've seen over and over again. You really want to test your incident response plan. Think back to your last red team, blue team exercise. What did you do to motivate the teams? A little bit of healthy competition between the teams is a good thing. That's how you're going to find the cracks in your attack surface. Maybe put up a prize or something, whatever you think will motivate them to win. And then find out where your gaps and your cracks in your attack surface exist. When was the last time you tested your BCP and DR plan? And in that plan, did you have something to check that the site you're failing over to is not part of some ongoing attack before you failed over to that site? And if not, why not? You see, what you're looking for is the ability to respond to the anomalous, let alone the obvious. And these things will determine your ability to respond rapidly. Hopefully, though, layers of defence will give you the time to detect the issue. So what are we talking about when we're talking about layered defences? Well, given that the World Economic Forum report said only 40% of us have done quantum risk assessments, let's talk a little bit about how do we defend against quantum? What do we build? What do we do? Well, the first thing you need to do is start by completing a cryptographic inventory of all your cryptography. You want to know where everything exists, what's vulnerable to quantum threats, and basically all your certificates, your data encryption, your backups and so forth. You want to know where all of it is so that then you can start to do a risk assessment. Now look at how sensitive your data is, how long it needs to stay secure. Prioritise upgrades for long-lived assets or critical assets and protect your most important information first. Now once you've mapped all that out, you can start layering your defences. Start by embracing cryptographic agility. Build modular systems that allow you to change cryptography as needed. Avoid hard-coding cryptographic methods. And by all means, make sure that your systems are ready to take the larger keys and certificates that will come along with post-quantum cryptography. Start testing and deploying post-quantum cryptography algorithms, ones like Kyber and dilithium. Now, I know NIST have given them a new name with little technical acronyms and so forth, but I don't remember those as well as I remember kyber and dilithium. But they're out there and they're available today. Immediately apply those things to some of your most important data now to protect against that harvest now, decrypt later problem that we're seeing today. Apply quantum-safe VPNs and overlay gateways in legacy systems, and segment networks and isolate systems that are vulnerable to attack. Implement strong multi-factor authentication that's totally independent of public key cryptography. And when you segment your networks, make sure you do it on the basis of zero trust principles. Make post-quantum cryptography part of your purchases and your vendor contracts. Monitor governments and their progress on post-quantum cryptography adoption and what you need to do in line with the things that they put in place as well. I could go on, but you get the idea. It's not about one problem, one problem and one solution to that problem, one cyber solution to that problem. It's one problem and a multi-tiered defence against it. And some of those tiers may overlap with other problems, and that's okay, because the deeper your defences go, the more they'll cover, the greater chance you have of detecting an intrusion. You know, our body's defence mechanism provides us some valuable insights on how we can act in any given cybersecurity situation. We've just seen a few things that can impact our attack surfaces. But what we've also seen is there are things that are directly within our control, and we can help improve those things. But there are things that exist outside of our realm of control, and for those things, we really need to brace for impact. Thank you very much.